Hello guys, welcome to my new video. In this video I'll be giving you a complete beginner's tutorial. But before you take any advice from me, you may want to know where I am. I played this game now for over 1k hours and I spent it mostly in the 1v1 ranked game mode. And as you can see, I played season 1, season 2, and I played a lot of tournaments and private games against very good players. I always try to improve. That's why I also test strategies and build orders all the time in Sandbox. But when I was a beginner, I didn't really knew what to do. I had like an upgrade in the altar. I didn't know what to do. Should I take it? Should I not take it? Should I farm wood or stone? And if I have fish, should I take it? How many fishing boats should I make? And recently I saw a lot of people with those questions, so I decided to make this YouTube video. And I will just go into a Sandbox game and just give you a basic guide on how to play. Here we are in the Sandbox game. When you start a battle, you will always have an altar, a bulwark, 10 workers and a scout. 5 of your workers will immediately go to the berries to collect food. 5 of your workers will immediately go to the wood line to collect materials. You need resources for everything in this game, and you can collect resources by workers obviously. And the more workers you have, the more resources you get. The more resources you get, the more buildings and units you get. The more buildings and units you get, the easier to win. So the first thing you gotta do is make as much workers as you can. You can just put a rally point like on the berries, and as you can see, a worker takes 10 seconds to produce and 50 food. So you might want to have like 8 workers on the berries just so you get enough food. A worker has a certain production speed, as you can see here. In this case for the berries it's 1.1, which basically means that the worker collects 1.1 berries per second. And after he has like 10 food, he just goes back to the altar to deliver it. For the case of the wood, there's a production speed of 1.0. After they have 10, they will just go back to the altar. And as you can also see here, you have 12 out of 12 population, which means you cannot produce any workers, and if you cannot produce any workers, you will get less resources. The thing you can do about this is selecting like 2 workers or 1 and building a hut. A hut gives you 3 more population, which means you can make 3 more workers. So as you can see, the very important thing in this game is that you make as much workers as possible, and that requires you to make a lot of houses. So I would recommend to like select 1 worker to build a lot of houses. Meanwhile, after you have like 8 on the berries, you can just put a waypoint to the wood to get the materials. As you can see, the workers have a production speed, but that is not only the one factor for collecting resources. After they are done collecting, they have to walk back to the altar. In the time they walk back, they are doing nothing. In this case the wait is not very long, so it doesn't really matter. But if I would like get the resources here, they would be like farming resources for 10 seconds, but maybe walk 10 seconds back and then 10 seconds back here, so the resource farming time is much less than the walking time. And to counter that, there's a building called the warehouse. You can place it anywhere you want. Once you build it, it basically delivers the resources at the warehouse or the altar, but if the warehouse is closer, it will be delivered there. And as you can see here, the warehouse also has 2 upgrades, berry comp upgrade and firewood ropes upgrade. They cost a decent amount of resources, so you should be aware that you have enough resources to buy those upgrades. Once you buy those upgrades, your workers will have 0.2 faster production speed. 1.0 turns into 1.2 and 1.1 turns into 1.3. You maybe are asking, should I take the Fur Shoes upgrade, since it increases the speed of the Stone Age workers and technically would also increase the resources you get. I do not recommend it, since Stone Age workers have a speed of 50. And if you take the upgrade, they have a speed of 55, which is only like 10%. And if you consider you have a good warehouse like this, and they are getting like 10 seconds here and only walk for 1 second there and back, then it's really not worth it. It's like only an increase of 1% or 2%. In some cases like this, maybe 3%. and the upgrade takes a lot of resources compared to the resources it gets you back, and it takes 30 seconds to produce, so in that time you could just make 3 more workers, and if you have only 20 workers and have 3 more workers, you get much more resources. And once you have a decent amount of workers, like over 30, maybe 40, you can build a temple. Once you have a temple, you can choose to go to the Bronze Age. There's a path of Europe and Asia, I will show that later. Beside that, there's the fighting pit. It's basically a barrier for Stone Age units. I do not recommend to build it for beginners, since most of the fights will not happen at that time. And also be cautious, there are a lot of wild animals on the map, so attacking is not ideal in that age. The stonecutter is basically a forge. It gives you like resources. What am I talking about? The forge is basically like an upgrade center. You can select certain upgrades there. I only built it now because I want to go to the Bronze Age of Europe, and when I go to the Bronze Age of Europe, it's much cheaper to upgrade the stonecutter than to build it in the Bronze Age. This is a special case. Usually upgrading is much more expensive than building it. Right now you just keep producing workers. That's your main priority. And you should always try to build as much warehouses as possible. So for example here, you just build a warehouse, so they don't work that much. And if you farm, for example here, you can make another warehouse. This temple here also functions as a warehouse currently, and once this is completed and I'm Bronze Age, that building will be deleted and that will be my main building. If that gets destroyed, then I will lose the game. As you can see now, I'm pop capped, so never forget to build enough houses, because if you are pop capped, you cannot produce any more workers, which means less resources. And as you saw right here, do not keep your workers idle. That is just lost mining time, which you don't want to have. Beside that, there are some certain things I recommend to use, like this button here. In a real game it would mark your territory on the map like red, which just allows you to see who's the enemy and who not. And I recommend using visibility of health bars for injured. When you're at the Bronze Age of Europe, at first you can just produce more workers, that's never wrong. You can upgrade your warehouse. Right now you are maybe wondering, why should you upgrade your warehouse, since it has the same effect as in Stone Age warehouse if they just can deliver there. Wrong, because the warehouse of the next age has a storage efficiency. In this case it's 110%, which basically means if a worker is collecting like 10 wood and delivers it at that warehouse, it will give you 11 wood. This also works for the main building without any upgrades. You can upgrade your houses. If you do that, each house will give you 5 population instead of 3. So that is a good idea if you want to produce more workers. At some point you will run out of berries, as I have here, and you will have no food. So you should upgrade your workers, because you cannot build any buildings with the Stone Age workers. That just does not work. So you have to upgrade your workers to Europe workers. And once you have them, you could make a farm. The farm basically gives you a lot of wood, so that's a priority when going to the next stage. In this case, it has strange wheat because it's the Halloween edition. Here you see my workers walking a lot of time. That's to avoid, so usually would build here a warehouse. I'll try to do it now as fast as possible. And the stonecutter, as you can see, only to upgrade costs 225 wood, and if you build a new one it's 250 plus 150 iron. So it's a bit more expensive if in total. But the forge costs 150 iron, and 150 iron does not equal 150 wood, because the production speed, as you saw earlier here, is much lower for iron, which means that iron is a much rarer resource. In this case, the scout becomes very handy, as I cannot see any iron here, so you usually want to start scouting at the start of the game, just like this. You can also like shift right click, so the units will automatically go to the waypoints, but more about that is here in the hotkeys. When you find an iron, do not build your warehouse immediately next to it, but leave a bit of space, so they can also move in between of it, and that will just increase their efficiency. Unfortunately, Stone Age workers cannot farm stone or iron, and I do not recommend to farm stone since it's a much slower production speed, at least in the early ages. You can upgrade your stonecutter to the forge, have your house, all your workers, whatever you like, and you can, in the Bronze Age, you can start building like barracks. I recommend to build like 5 to 10 barracks. That's a good amount. And as you can see here, the iron worker is only at 0.6 speed, so like 2 times lower than the wood worker, which means like 100 iron is as much worth as 200 wood. Once you have a barrack, you will recognize that you have a few of upgrades here. Those upgrades are only working for the Bronze and Iron Age. If you take upgrades in the Forge, however, those upgrades will even carry up to the Medieval Age. So those are a priority, and those only if you really want to produce the units and have an advantage by using them. You usually should always do workers here, it should never be idle like I have right now. And once you reach the population cap, you can do a extra beds and homes upgrade, which basically increases your maximum 60 population cap to 90. In the Bronze Age you should usually have like 16 houses, so you can utilize the 90 population. You can start producing units out of the barracks in case you want to attack. That's a bulwark and defensive tower. It's not really doing much since no one will attack you in the Stone Age, but once you reach the Bronze Age, you can upgrade it to a Guardian Tower, which also saves you quite a lot of resources, since also in this case it's much cheaper to upgrade it than to build a new one. Here you see your first units. For units itself, you can like control group them, like if you select them and press on your keyboard like Ctrl 5, you can always select them with the number 5. Also, additionally, you can just type F2 and select your whole army. You can attack units by either clicking on them or typing the Q attack. You use the button Q on your keyboard and then you have to click somewhere and they will basically attack everything that's on the way. It's much better than attacking a single target, since they will then also attack multiple targets. If you want to reach the Iron Age, you need 30 workers and 500 iron. You can send some already here on the iron. I do not have 500 iron yet, but the upgrades usually consume resources over time, which means I can already start it, even though I don't have the resources. But still, you should have a good enough economy to kinda deliver those resources. Otherwise you will be stuck at 0 iron and nothing will happen. If we look at this, you can see that the workers have to walk quite a lot of time to get to this warehouse, which means that that warehouse is quite inefficient. To solve this problem, you can just delete the warehouse, select some workers in that area, and create a new warehouse right next to the wood line. And that way your workers don't have to walk anymore, and you get a lot of more resources. It's really recommended to replace new warehouses and use as much warehouses as you can. If your wheat somehow runs out here on the farm, you can always add some more wheat. Once you reach the Iron Age, It's very important that you again spam a lot of workers, just that you get as much as resources as you can. Then you will realize that you have quite a few upgrades in the warehouse again. An upgrade that increases the production speed by wood, and an upgrade to increase the production speed on the iron. So you take both upgrades, so you get more resources. Then the forge, there will be a few more upgrades for cutting weapons, construction speed, and in the normal barracks there are some upgrades to unlock some units. You can take those if you want to use those units. In case your map has some sea, it's always recommended to make some fishing docks and make as much ships as you can. It's really recommended. And on the farm there's of course also a sickle upgrade, which greatly increases the speed of collecting food. Once you feel like you have enough resources, like because you need 2000 wood and 800 iron, you can go to the next stage. In my case I will go Western Europe. But before that you need to cancel your workers. I will just complete the last one so I can get out more economy. Here we are in the Middle Age. When you reach the Middle Age, I recommend to take this upgrade here, that you get 150 population. It really helps you. When you get Middle Age, it's very important that you at first get a good economy. You need to upgrade all your warehouses, but as you can see, this one is not useful, so you can cancel the upgrade by clicking here, and then deleting the warehouse by clicking delete. Then it's very important that you upgrade your workers, so they can work at a faster production speed, while also you can build structures from the medieval area with them. Then it's also very important that you upgrade your farm, everything that's regarding economy. If you have docks, you can upgrade them. If you have fishing boats, you can upgrade them. After you have done that, you can upgrade your forge, so you can get the medieval upgrades. You can upgrade your barracks, but you can also just produce units out of them and build new barracks, like in this case. There are certain different playstyles you can do. You can go for infantry, archers, horses, siege machines, for everything you want, even trebuchets. And of course don't forget to upgrade your houses, since that will give you more population. Once the upgrade here is finished, you just queue up a lot of workers. If you want to see how many workers you have, you can do that by here. Right now I have 61 and I want to have 80 before I go to the late Middle Ages. Before you can go to the late Middle Ages, you have to upgrade everything, of course. In general, I would say in this game it's very important that you focus on your economy. You have to always make workers, place very good warehouses, get the economical upgrades in the warehouses, get enough houses so you don't get population capped, and then also take the population upgrades in your main building. That's the most important aspects of the game. And if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time.